Hey, how you doing? Welcome once again to another edition of Top 10 Worst Things of All Time. Today's top 10 list will be top 10 worst things that everybody loves. Today's episode is brought to you by from the producers of Bridget Jones's Diary. Now comes Bridget Jones's Diarrhea. A spectacular, almost explosive amount of good humor and a completely emotionally intense expressiveness. You don't want to miss a minute of it. And now on to the disclaimers. First of all, to let you know, my name is Perry Winkle, and I'm completely nuts. So, I can't be trusted or relied upon. I'm not politically partisan. This isn't about trying to make, to score with babes by impressing them with my devout dedication to, some political alliance. I hate everybody equally. I hate everything and everyone equally. I'm not trying to create a movement. It might seem like that. Where we all hate everyone and everything equally together. I think it would be nice if we could all do something together. But hey, I don't have an agenda. I'm not coming to this with an agenda. And I think that takes care of it. For now, let's get on with today's list. Like I said, top 10 worst things that everybody loves. Only I. Like a stalwart, diehard. Continue to hate. Number 10, Democrats in name only. Dinos, they call them. They call them the dinos. And I don't really get it. Why anybody would go out there, but clearly in a city like Chicago, where I do my business from time to time, I, like the last 4 or 5 mayors of Chicago, something like that, all claiming to be Democrats, but, judging by their actions, it seems like they really kind of hate the working class and the blue-collar types and stuff like that, who I, see as not having any sort of representation in the power apparatus whatsoever, and I think it's a bummer. But, they're selling out the parking meters, they're selling out the public parking lots and, to some shady billionaire corporations and stuff like that. That's not a Democrat. Everybody, prescribes, like sort of projects all of their sort of like quasi presumed intelligence on saying like, oh, Chicago's a deep blue city. They must, be real lefty and stuff like that. The guys who run the city are not even close to lefty. They put up speed cameras in areas that are all kind of working class areas and stuff like that, and gouge people until they're, almost economically ruined and bankrupt, and take away all the parking with all these concrete enclosed bike lanes that nobody uses. I mean, it's, freaking 5 months out of the year, it's too damn cold to drive a bicycle. And there's been surveys and stuff that have been published by outlets a lot more reliable than me that say that only 1% of the people who live in Chicago even own a bicycle. And they're putting them up in front of small businesses, so they go out of business. They don't have any parking, everything like that. It's just a nonstop nightmare. And these are not things that real progressives would be doing to their constituencies. These are the hallmarks of what, these pro-billionaire, pro-corporate, pro-box store types will be doing. So, let's open our eyes and not, sort of try to be ruled by prejudices that are imposed upon us by, mouthpieces, lapdogs. I'm not down. So anyway, number 9 on the top 10 worst things that everybody loves, carbs. Okay, I mean, I'm trying my best to choose a camera angle that doesn't reveal too many of my double chins. I've got several. I've got more chins than Mount Rushmore, is the old joke. I'm not embarrassed by it. Yeah, I eat my feelings. What of it? I'm a lone wolf on the High Plains Drifter. And I've got no healthy emotional outlets in my life. But so what? I mean, join the club. There's a lot of us out there, and unfortunately, the only way to get that, whatever that juice is, that pituitary, whatever thingy that squeezes out when you got the adrenaline rushes and all that kind of stuff, the endorphins, I think they are. And you got, so what? But like everybody loves carbs. Nobody's like saying whatever. They just put out a new food pyramid. Look, when I was younger, they had a food pyramid out there. They put a new food pyramid out every, like 5 or 6 generations, I guess. My food pyramid at the bottom had like 37 different servings of grains. I'm not even exaggerating. It was 30, maybe 36 servings of grains a day. Right on the bottom of the food pyramid that they had, hanging in every classroom. They're like, class, would you take your butt and listen to this food pyramid thing? And, now I'm so like, what are you supposed to expect from people when they're taught from day one? They're indoctrinated and ingrained into their psyche that it's good for you to eat 36 or 37 servings of grains every day. So you're like, it's like 4 loaves of bread. And so, yeah, I'm like sitting there. And we used to have this, it's not all my fault. They had this banana flavored peanut butter that I used to love. Because was it called Google? We don't say it was called Google. Maybe not. I don't know. Something close to that. But and then they had the peanut butter and the jelly mixed in the same jar and stuff. And I'd have a loaf of white bread because that's all that we had back in those days. I mean, occasionally you'd stumble across like, I don't know, if you were going to get like a corned beef, you'd get rye bread. But other than that, it was just all white bread. So you get like a couple of loaves. My favorite was the butternut with the squared off top that didn't have the round top. The crust on the round top was always like a little, like a little too, I don't know. It just didn't have that mouthfeel. We didn't have mouthfeel back in those days. It was just sort of an instinctual thing in your personal relationship with the loaf. That, you just sort of, you didn't have a word for it. We didn't have a term for it. But there was a sandwich bread by Butternut that didn't have the dark brown crust on the top, that arc thing. It was flat on top and it had the mellow sort of light tan crust on all 4 sides. It was squared off. And so I'd sit down there with that, Saturday morning cartoons because we had, the Wacky Races and others. So I'd sit down with the loaf of bread and the goober. I think maybe it was goober. Maybe it was called, I don't remember. But it was the peanut butter and the jelly all in the same jar. So it made it a lot easier somehow to just like bread, slop, top slice, stuff down the throat. And then you get the half gallon of the milk with the thing. And you just suppose it, 4 or 5 hours worth of carbo loading. We didn't have the term carbo loading at the time. We didn't know what that was, but we knew because we were told that 36 to 37 servings of grain was what we were supposed to be ingesting every day. And so, yeah, I became, hippopotamus-like. I would waddle frequently, even at a young age, until I got my growth spurt and various other spurts. And so be it. But now they got the food pyramid, they got to turn it upside down. So, it's all got that, we've got so many different diabolical sort of references. Why not, turn the food pyramid upside down so it kind of looks a little creepy? Like, what's an upside down pyramid that's to do with anything anymore? I mean, at the pyramid, at least, even though it was trying to poison turn us into a bunch of easily manipulated fatties and stuff, at least it made sense to call it a pyramid because it was, at the top you had fats and oils and whatnot in terms of like only have one or two of those a day. And then, in between you had the various different food groups and different amounts of servings that you're supposed to have, but it was all shaped in a pyramid. Now they still call it a food pyramid. And it's upside down, and it's got, I don't even know what it is. On one side of the top row of the new modern day upside down food pyramid, which is more like just like a upside down triangle. I don't know why pyramids, I haven't seen a pyramid. Yeah, I've seen some different style pyramids. You got, sorry about that. I got the food pyramids. It's got, relate to actual pyramids that you see, which are sort of like, wide on the bottom, thin on the top, even with the, South American pyramids and such, or Mexican? Where were those pyramids? I don't remember what the Aztec, which ones had the better, more triangular shaped pyramids in the Americas. But you certainly didn't have one with the pointy side of it on the ground with the wide side on the top. That was not a pyramid. It's no longer a food pyramid. It's a food upside down triangle. I don't know why they're trying to sell it to us, but anyway, the other load of bull dink that they're selling us with this newfangled upside down triangle food thing is that on one side of the top row, it's like tons of meat and saturated fats. And on the other side of it, it's got like, I think it's vegetables and stuff like that. It's not even like compartmentalized into layers anymore to make it nice and easy for kids to comprehend. It's like separated out. It's like this upside down triangle thingy, food thingy, has got like 20 different little compartments that are kind of, it's not just, they don't have their own layers even anymore. It's like, what the hell are you, I don't think it's going to make anybody healthier. I don't think anybody's ready to listen anymore at this point. When I was a kid, people listened to that kind of stuff, until people really got to see some of the sort of the true nature of the man behind the curtain. We were sort of like, oh yeah, well, the United States, they're not going to lie to us about what's healthy for us and stuff like that. So we were down. We were eating like 20, 30 grain servings every day. But now it's just like, nobody pays attention to that anyway. So what's the point of having the upside down triangle food thingy that nobody's going to even bother to listen to? They're all so cynical. Nobody ever believes on anything from the power elite is like completely divorced from anything that anybody has to do with in terms of their real lives. It just all seems like a scam the minute something comes out of them. You see their mouths moving, we figure scam, 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 scam. There's no reality to what they say in terms of like the problems that we're facing in our lives. They talk about, eliminating red dye number 2 and stuff like that. Who wants to, focus on that when you've got toxic mercury inside of our fish? They've got Teflon shedding off poison into our system in our frying pans. And you got, who knows how much of this Aaron Brockovich hexavalent chromosomes, things that they got with the Aaron Brockovich thing, feeding into our, industrial pig farming. And stuff like, who's got industrial pig farming, on the top of their list? No, red dye number 2. We need to get rid of red dye number 2. Well, hey, yeah, we do need to get red dye. We're worth get rid of red dye number 2 and stuff like that. But if that's the first thing that you're working on, you're not working on trying to make us healthier. You're just working on trying to, make yourself seem important. I've never seen it like this. It's so, it was like 3 or 4 times almost every day that you see a food recall in the news. It's never been like this and everything like that. I might come off as just some sort of weirdo that's eating a lot of carbs and, detached and emotionally bankrupt. But, the thing is, I know enough to realize, that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, there was never like this. You'd have a recall once in a while, like every fiscal quarter. You'd have like, and mostly packaged salad, prepackaged salad, and it'd be like, an E. coli has broken out in a packaged salad. It's all recall, and that'd be all that you'd ever have for recall. Now it's like every 2-3 times a day you have recalled sweets because they have the wrong allergen information inside them. You've got recalled deli meats because I don't know, they've got too much like listerias and whatnot up in them, and you've got all kinds of different various different my favorite is the radioactive shrimp. And I'm doing this in, what is this? This is February of 2026. And they, this one is really, if nobody's focusing on making this the first thing that they work on, then, all that other stuff might kill us in 30, 40 years. Okay, red dye number 2. Oh, yeah, I could see that, really. I'm a robust person. I know how to handle my red dye number 2, okay? I'm not sitting there eating red dye number 2 every 5 seconds and, like that. Sometimes I get a little yellow dye number 3 or whatever, Chanel number 5. And the thing is, that stuff might kill me, when I'm 90 or whatever, if I just sit there guzzling red dye number 2. But radioactive shrimp? Okay, so here's the deal. There was a thing about 15, 16 years ago, Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant in Japan that they built right on the water's edge, and there was a tsunami from an earthquake, and the tsunami wiped out a nuclear power plant. And the damage was, much higher than we were really intimately made aware of. And they haven't been able to fix it. Sorry to tell you. But it's still leaking radiation into the air. And they're still they haven't repaired any of it, really. It's still, the damage 16 whatever years later is still just as bad as it was on day one. And they've got all this radioactive wastewater that they've been using to cool the plant, the exposed cores, in order to keep it from doing the China syndrome. Although we called it the China syndrome back in the 70s, which would be a nuclear core having a meltdown and tunneling its way through the entire Earth and coming out on the opposite side, which sort of like sold to us as a sort of fantasy thing, and people like would come out in China. I don't know what's exactly on the opposite side of some of the nuclear plants in the 1970s that the China syndrome was in reference to when they originally coined that term. But I do know that there's some of the things that they got going for themselves now with the China and the syndrome thing. If it's happening in Japan, I don't know what type of syndrome they would call that on the opposite side of the globe from Japan. Is not going. Well, certainly it's not going to be China, so they can't call it China syndrome when they have a nuclear meltdown with the potential for the core to drill its way through the earth. Would be more like I don't know, a Greenland syndrome or something. I really, honestly, I don't know. But fact is that that's what they're working on, still working 16 years later to try to prevent. So they've got the only way that they can keep it cool enough so that it doesn't start dispersing radioactivity into the atmosphere at levels that will wipe out planet Earth or large portions of it, is to keep it cooled with water. And so when this water does all this cooling thing, it becomes super toxic radioactive water. And they've been keeping this for, almost 2 decades now. They've been able to keep a lot of this water out of the water table in, like casks and, gallon jugs. I don't know where they keep it in out there, but last year they ran out of space for it, whatever their receptacles for these things. And so they dumped it into the Pacific Ocean. All this super toxic radioactive wastewater that they've been, managing to hoard for whatever amounts of, years. They dumped it into the Pacific Ocean, and then all of a sudden, coinky dink, you start hearing about all these radioactive shrimp recalls. There were, to my knowledge, and I'm not, 100% plugged in. I'm perhaps a little bit more tuned in to the world around me and what I can glean off of a pay no mind sort of mainstream news media, which oftentimes will have created a new way of lying to us by ignoring things that they don't want us to know about and only reporting on things that fit in with their whole, desire to manipulate the status quo. And I get, little dribs and drabs of that, probably as good as the average schmuck. But I know I've seen at least 3 recalls of shrimp due to radioactivity that were all shrimp that came from the area where they did the dumping of the toxic radioactive waters, like in Indonesia and stuff like that. And so I'm like thinking like, okay, well, are we all dying? I mean, we're all going to be dead. Did Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant disaster, is that the end of the human race? Is that the, like the comet that killed all the dinosaurs? Because, look, I don't know about you, but I'm, my resistance to radioactive shrimp is not real high. Whereas, guzzling red dye number 2, I'll take my chances on that. And I think I'll probably be able to, have a pretty good life. And maybe oopsies. Sorry, I got I do have a vast crew, 62 different members of the production crew that are part of this top 10 worst things of all time episodic. But most of them are here on a court-ordered mandate as a means of community service, and they by part of the negotiations that I had to agree to means that they get 15 out of every 16 minutes as a coffee break. So I apologize for the lights going out a couple times, but don't worry about it. I got like some of the highest level production facilities you've ever heard of, or people that live in third world countries have ever heard of. But anyway, so hey, but guzzling radioactive shrimp I'm not down. I don't think I'll survive that. I'm not really doing a good job at surviving without the radioactive shrimp. And I would, once in a while, like to have some shrimp. It's tasty and it's low-cal. And God knows I need stuff that's low-cal. Tasty, maybe not so much. Low-cal, yeah, totally. But anyway, that's number 9, carbs. Number 8 of the top worst things, by the way, to remind you, top worst things. Oh my God, I've been 26 minutes and I'm only on number 8. I better speed this thing up. Number 8, the lack of originality and integrity of movies/TV/music. I mean, who cares about any of that stuff anymore, right? You're used to it. They've been slowly grinding you down with the most repetitive, infantile, emotionless, robotic crap for so long that it's more indoctrination than, the expressive, the nature of human art endeavors. It's just like completely garbage. I mean, just with more movies. Movies have every movie has 2 different plots. One plot is like the story arc for the characters to go through as you're watching it, like with the happy ending, which is usually, if not always, monogamous, heterosexual coupling is the only happy ending pretty much that we're allowed to be exposed to in our society. And then music has become more product placement. How many different product placements do you hear there's a song called Red Solo Cup by what's his name, Toby Keith, I think it is. And it's you find, okay, well, it's Red Solo Cup seems like a fun little innocuous little song, but the fact of the matter is that the company that owned Red Solo Cup, it's just coincidence that the people that own Red Solo Cup were selling the corporation that made Red Solo Cup right around the time that the single was released. Oh boy. And then they sold it probably for a whole heck of a lot more because of the song Red Solo Cup was a big hit inside everybody's mind. It drove up the value of the company, and bada bing, bada boom, they made a bunch of probably who knows how many, but probably like a extra couple $100,000, a couple 2-3 million, something like that, because they did that song. So it's all paid for. And even if it wasn't, the company that owns 75% of the radio stations throughout the country that make all the hits, that manufacture the hits by choosing, who's going to get the heavy rotation spins, they're owned by the same corporation, the most evil, diabolical people in the history of planet Earth. I'm not even exaggerating. Look it up. Clear Channel, iHeartRadio, Robert Pittman, all those people, they're complete and total sociopaths. Those are the people those are the exact people that we should be keeping away. We should be force feeding them red dye number 2. Number 7, it's a tie between creepy looking actors like Spielberg movies and such, and Dr. Diablo's House of Beef Sweats. Dr. Diablo's House of Beef Sweats, man. Look, I don't know half of the things that I'm saying. Most of the stuff that's coming out of my mouth is just, the rantings and ramblings of somebody who's completely lost their way in terms of being a nice, polite, playing, somebody who's playing nice with the world around while everything collapses and implodes under the weight of the billionaire class's agenda of trying to destroy humanity. But hey, you know what? If you like, the creepy looking actors in Spielberg movies and such, then, I don't know what you're trying to do with your life. If you just play the game and roll the dice and wait and see what these people are, you won't know whatever happened to you. They'll just knock on your door and, drag you out to a boxcar, send you off to a detention camp, and give you some sort of, like, what do they call that thing? Zyklon? That stuff. I think they're going to, personally, I think that, COVID was a real thing. I think there's so many millions of people that were, throughout the world that were dying from this stuff. How can what's the point of trying to make that up? It's so much easier to just kill off people and just release a disease and just destroy, the working class and the middle class and stuff like that in the big cities where everybody's all packed like sardines. And so they're coughing all over each other. And in the meantime, down in the South, where people are spread out, there's not as much population density and stuff like that. They don't get hit as badly with it. And so they're like thinking like, oh, this stuff is all made up. And, like a lot of people like that might, have stronger constitution. The people who live in, for decades upon decades, layered on top of each other, elbow to elbow, making it all happen, coughing all over each other. But either way, fact is that, it would make a real logical way of getting rid of the human race now that the AI cybernetic robots are just about to be brought online. And fact is, all the years since what you call a feudal society and stuff like that, people have been virtual slaves, all people. And we've been building things. We've been, creating a lot of value with our sweat equity that has all been skimmed off the top by the ruling elite since the beginning of culture and civilization. And they're just taking large swaths of the value that we're creating and using it to build their palatial estates so they don't have to be anywhere near us because they fear us. They fear that, that will make them, they give them cooties and whatnot. And so they've got like all this wealth that they've been able to collect off of the sweat equity and labor of the human race. But what happens when they don't need the human race to create all that wealth and equity and those luxury items that they're so used to? I mean, look, human race has been pretty good to them, the billionaire class. And we've been doing a nice job at training doctors to do their brain surgeries and their plastic surgeries and all the various different miscellaneous surgeries in between. And we build them Lamborghinis and stuff like that. And they're totally like living large on the backs of our sweat equity. And that's been great for them. And they love it. And that's the only reason they've kept us around. But think about what they could do if they had a cybernetic race of AI robots that could do all the brain surgeries and luxury items without us. Because, you gotta maybe give them a tune-up once in a while. Maybe feed them a little scraps of plutonium or whatever will power them, or electricity and stuff like that. But beyond that, they don't need insurance. They don't need real housing. They don't need a police force because they're all programmed. They don't need food. They don't need clean air. They don't need any things that we need. So, as soon as they got those robots to take care of the surgeries and the luxury items, what do you think they're going to do with us? You think they're going to pay us? Have you seen the billionaires in action? You think these are the type of people who are going to issue 8 billion universal basic income checks on an ongoing basis and just kind of go like, oh, okay, well, you guys are down. To be, just sit around and do nothing for the rest of your lives, and we'll give you, I don't know, $4,000 a month to sit around and do nothing. Or $3,000, I don't know what it takes to, it depends on where you live, I suppose, how much you're going to need for that using universal basic income, but you're going to need to do 8 billion of them every month. Direct deposit, you won't have to do a paper check, but still, I mean, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of processing and everything like that. Why not just get rid of the human race and just keep the robots around and just, keep large farms and stuff like that for vital organ harvesting, for Hunger Game types of entertainment activities. And so, oh my God, I'm still here. Jesus. It's embarrassing. It really is. But anyway, so you got these various different types of needs that they'll still have that you're going to want to have, some human farms where you keep a few of them around and stuff like that. But other than that, you're just gonna have to do without and just kick them to the curb. That's probably why they're not doing anything about global warming, because they know at some point in the next decade or two that they're going to be able to exterminate the human race for the most part without any regrets. I don't know. Number six. That's what Spielberg. That's what Spielberg movies are all about. Glorification of suburbia and everything, and white power and all that kind of stuff. It's all inherent in all of Steven Spielberg's movies. He chooses subjects so that he can get around the burden of having to use black people as main characters. So he'll do a movie about World War II, storming of the Omaha beach and stuff like that, because he can keep it mostly white. And people will be like, oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah. There's mostly white people at Omaha Beach, not all, but certainly a large proportion of them. And certainly wouldn't be any suspicious type of thing if you had an entire movie like that with no black people in it whatsoever. That's how he chooses his projects. To know that yes, sure, he did The Color Purple, but a lot of the black people in The Color Purple are just not, navigating life in the same type of heroic way that he depicts the people in Saving Private Ryan. He's got, drunk, white beater, rapey types of men, and characters are just sort of, it's a heroic struggle in its own way, but Spielberg's doing it so he can depict, black people as being, impacted by the nature of the struggles that we've imposed upon them. He won't do he does the other one he did with has and any black people in it whatsoever is Amistad, right? And Amistad, most of the black people in the movie are all slaves. So, and then you look at all the other movies that he's done, it's all white people. So, and anybody who's like a main character or anything like that, or heroic, or, the magical whitey or whatever they call that thing, the Legend of Bagger Vance, whatever the hell it is. And you've got, just like a series of white, heroic types with suburbanite ethos. Who the hell wants any of that crap? Suburbanite ethos. God damn. Screw those people. Anyway, number 6 of the top 10 worst things that everybody loves. The third-party outsourced propaganda ministry disguised as mainstream media. And I've kind of been talking about this for the last couple of line items. Most people have been really kind of led down the primrose path, as it were, and indoctrinated into society that we've all been led to believe is, without defect, just the greatest society in the history of all societies, the United States. And you get, the cheerleaders like Ronald Reagan and apologists like Jimmy Carter and stuff like that, who kind of all together have created this narrative of America being the shining house on the hill. And if there's anything wrong with America, the mainstream elements of our culture and society have led us to believe that it's progressivism and lefty ideology that's been the source of all bad things in the country. And we've got not a lot of, you've got Clinton's depicted as a liar and a rapist, and the people who complain about the injustices of our society and the inequities of our society have been that whole thread of the identity of trying to make the world a better place, trying to fight against the powers that be, and the billionaire class has been morphed into something a little bit more like just the identity of dissent. And once they kind of grouped all those people into the same tub of goo, they redefined the tub of goo, aka dissent, into being something that's despicable. So the only people the monopoly on the distribution of ideas in what we call the mainstream media has been so complete and so dedicated to right-wing fascist indoctrination that people don't really even sense that our idea of what it is to dissent against the United States has been intentionally screwed up in our minds. Now when you think about people who, like dissent or rebel against the institutions of the United States, you think of Timothy McVeigh, you think of the Unabomber, you think of Osama bin Laden, you think of things like that, so that now when a rational, caring person talks about reforming the country so that there's more representation for the working class and the blue-collar types, any representation for them whatsoever, and all of a sudden you think like, oh, he's dissenting against the status quo. He must be evil. He must be the new Timothy McVeigh. And don't try to deny it. You can live in denial all you want. That doesn't make it less true. But that is exactly what's going on. And in order to be able to pull that off, think about all the things that we've been told are evil in our lives. Communism is evil. Socialism is evil. Progressivism is evil, so on and so forth. People of color are evil. You think about who's telling us these things. There's people who are saying that capitalism is great and communism is bad are, the media, and who owns the media? The multi-billionaires. So, of course, the billionaires are going to tell you that capitalism is great and communism is evil. Not to say that communism is good. Look, I don't believe in any of that stuff. All that stuff just leads to consolidation of power, and then when power is consolidated, the people who have that power become corrupt. The perfect means of being able to organize society in a political way has not been allowed for us to glom onto. It just doesn't exist. And it's certainly not, it might exist. Some, freaks who are loaded up on radioactive shrimp, might have the answers, but we certainly don't get to know about them. We're busy talking about, the debating between two evils. Communism doesn't work and capitalism doesn't work. It all creates inequities that perpetuate suffering for the masses. So I don't know what the argument really is, but anyway, in order for them to be able to pull this off, they had to be able to create a propaganda mechanism that wasn't attached to the legitimate government. And so, most dictatorial governments in history have had a propaganda ministry that's part of the government. So you look to, Joseph Goebbels and stuff like that, which is, the go-to, but Stalin was just as bad. So, but they had propaganda ministries. So, and that was part of government. So you realize, oh, well, if you get a propaganda ministry, you might be like an evil government. It could be. But without the propaganda ministry here in the United States, we're like, well, okay, the government must be okay. But they did that, they still had a propaganda ministry, but they just outsourced it to being a third party. And the third party was the mainstream media. And all these, corporate lackeys that they had that were totally tied in with the same agenda. They were all operating on the same page. Destroy the, the working class. And co-opt their efforts and keep skimming off the top. Keep skimming more. And it's, it's a real shame. So, everybody keeps telling you liberal media. Like, show me the ownership of any liberal media, and at the top of the food chain, you're going to find a billionaire. And, of course, the people who are telling us that there's a liberal media that exists out there are the actual mainstream media. And they have, it's they've got, so much skin in the game that doesn't really matter to us, trying to be able to, find a little bit of a way to get outside of the system, to be able to see it objectively. There's a few of us out there who have been able to detach themselves from the corporate teat. But most people are just kind of like, oh, yeah, sure, it's a little media, blah, blah, blah. Because there's a few intelligent people that they show in, sort of mainstream focus. But those people aren't the people with the green light power. The people with the green light power are the only ones who matter in this whole system, because they have cleverly disguised a bunch of people as actual as pretend liberals, just like we were doing in Chicago. I was talking about earlier, where they had pretend Democrats, stuff like that. They've got pretend liberals who are in positions of, getting a lot of face time, but they don't really do much in terms of being able to get somebody like, liberal, like Meryl Streep or somebody like that, who talks a, good game about, Donald Trump making fun of, a disabled news reporter and stuff like that on her big Golden Globes speech that she made. But in the same paragraph, she starts disparaging people who are into MMA and football, who watch football, and calls them a bunch of scumbags. So it's like, that's not a progressive person. Nobody with anybody who's really dedicated to progressivism is looking to help the working class, is looking to help the blue-collar people have an equity in this world that we were promised in the Declaration of Independence, about all men being created equal, having equal opportunities in the eyes of our Creator, to live lives that are equal to the lives of the prevalent ruling class. Stuff like that. That was what this country was supposed to be founded on, but it never really was it? It never really was. It was just this disguise, and that's what this third-party outsourced propaganda ministry is. It's just disguised. It's all disguised as mainstream media, and they keep calling themselves, it's the big lie. They keep repeating it over and over again, like liberal media. All the media outlets, these mainstream media, giant conglomerates and stuff like that, are owned by billionaires, owned and run by billionaires. There's nobody liberal who's deciding what we see and what we hear. They just keep telling us that, and we just keep falling for the same joke every time. And it's, it's the same people who are signing the checks for like people on the Daily Show that are signing the checks for the people in the Breitbart Report, or people in the the Daily Wire and stuff like that. They're all the same people who are writing the checks to pay for all this stuff, because they got us fighting amongst ourselves so that we don't just walk down the street and say, hey, we're taking all this good stuff that you scammed off the top of our efforts. We're taking it all back. Number 5, the top worst things that everybody loves, not being able to do. God. See, I'm getting tired of these people just walking out like that. And I'm trying to do something. This is the first edition of Top 10 Worst Things of All Time. And I can't even get, people keep the lights on for an entire... it's almost... Number 5, not being able to share things with people. It is a bummer. I can't share anything emotionally with anybody anymore. I just don't trust anybody. And I've been hurt so many times, been let down. People are just sort of operating on a and this is people on both sides of this great divide that they've imposed upon us. They just don't want to really get down with the level of detail that it takes to expunge the lies. These aren't easy things to contend with. These aren't easy things to be able to quantify and identify and work against and fight against. But they're waging a war against us. It's a war of the mind. It's infused into everything that we see. They created this total fantasy land that they've immersed us in that has nothing to do with reality. It's all just an interpretation of what they want us to think reality is, so that they will keep fighting amongst ourselves and not turn against them and take all our stuff back. Number 4 of the 10 things that people... 10 worst things that everybody loves. Taylor Swift. I'm sorry, you Swifties out there, and things like that. You think you're something special, or that she's something special. They're not, we're not, she's not. It's all a bunch of garbage, plastic, regurgitated nonsense. It's more... Concerts these days are more like fashion shows, lip syncing, emotional syncing. It's not just lip syncing anymore, but they cop emotions like there's a real emotion somewhere in there. It's just all, she has the Taylor Swift version of her albums, and then they get stolen from her. Sure, they do. And she came from a billionaire family or multi-million-dollar family, stuff like that. She's had the best representation even before she was a media star. So it's like, no, she didn't get her masters stolen. Who cares? It's all so plastic anyway that she was able to recreate them without, any effort or anything like that, just recreate them. I mean, that's not music, that's product. You can't, go ahead. If people could do it, they would have done it. They would have recreated, something that has some depth to it. Would have recreated Led Zeppelin or something, where people would just be able to listen to it and just kind of go like, oh yeah, I feel it. I want to listen to it 100,000 times for years and decades to come. Stuff like that. If they could do it just that easily, if somebody stole Led Zeppelin's master, they couldn't go back in and recreate Led Zeppelin 4. The vibe, the feel of it, it'd just be, it just doesn't exist anymore. People like that, have depth and power and expressiveness that nobody has the capability of recreating. It's part of what makes it so special and makes it such a great, uplifting experience for us to be able to enjoy that stuff over and over again over the years and have an emotional and energetic sort of connection and benefit from it. But if you can just recreate it and stuff like that, just re-release them. Here's Taylor's version, blah, blah, blah. And who cares? It's just proving that it's disposable. Good luck with that. Anywho, number 3, top 10 lists, of course. Top 10 worst things that everybody loves. Top 10 lists. Gonna make it really high up on the ladder there. Number 2, Reiki therapy. I get it. People want to have stuff, or the people are so put upon and searching for answers about why they're suffering so much. It's probably because of the radioactive shrimp. You get radioactive shrimp, 3 recalls of radioactive shrimp within 6 months of having gigantic dumping of wastewater into the Pacific Ocean. Sure, you're going to need Reiki therapy. You're going to need every kind of therapy. That's not red day number 2. It's all these other things. Teflon and the acid rain stuff. Whatever happened to acid rain? Acid rain needs to be everywhere. All of a sudden, acid rain doesn't exist anymore. No, instead we got thunder snow. There's going to be a 90% chance of thunder snow coming up here. And number 1 of the top 10 worst things that everybody loves is everything. Okay, everybody loves everything. Everybody hates everything. Who cares what everybody thinks anymore? It's not worth a damn. You was worried about, Bill Gates going to put computer chips in my brain. We got that through the vaccinations. Going to get the vaccination. Going to put computer chips in my vaccinations making you sick. Sure. Yeah. What about all the chemicals in our groundwater from the industrial hog farming and stuff like that? Oh, no, don't worry about that. That's the rain coming down, everything like that. No. You're not going to get me with that. When industrial wind farms become evil, and machination of evil scientists, what do you think these scientists are out there? They're like, we're going to get the industrial wind farms. We're going to murder the birds. Everything. Anyway, that's the conclusion of this, what is the premiere edition of Top 10 List. I didn't mean to make it an hour long. Honestly, I didn't. I just put the list together and thought, well, okay, this is going to be fun. But I'm certainly not going to button my lip, you rotten bastards. So everything I said here are the opinions, are opinions. Not of my own, but bestowed upon me by Almighty God, or whatever generative, semi-intelligent power that created the universe. I don't know. I'm simply channeling these things through. I'm channeling these things through me. Not to brag, but those who want to kill me, dump their own emotional baggage on me, or shoot the messenger, I guarantee my life sucks and is full of betrayal, titanic amounts of physical pain, loneliness, and regrets. The only reason I appear to be happy is because, through no fault of my own, I was born with a great power of resilience. So, even though my life sucks, and I've got some kind of mechanism that just kicks in to power me through it and still find something resembling joy in my life, I don't know. I don't know what it is. It is, however, 100% cosmetic. The biggest torture or misery you could ever come up with for me, I promise you, is nothing compared to the level of grief, anguish that I endure by simply continuing to live my life every day. So hit me up with a comment if you've been inspired or feel creative. Join my Patreon. Leave a tip. Would be great because my physical ailments threaten my life to almost unsurvivable levels. So why not click the like button and subscribe for me, you filthy animal, and let's try to get through this mess together. Thanks very much. Thanks for being you.